everybody. Welcome to the MMA Heat podcast. I'm Karyn Bryant.
What's up, everyone? Alan Jouban with you as well.
All right, so today, Alan, we'll talk UFC 254 about the main and co-main event there, and the Eagles sailing off into the sunset there, flying into the clouds. Kind of bummed about that retirement, but and also we'll look ahead to Anderson and Uriah this weekend. But in general, also we're like a month away from your fight. So how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's just I just am ready to get there already. I kind of said that already. But we're in that month mark, and when that time comes, for me, it's always kind of like a flipping of the switch. It becomes very real, and now every time I train, I'm visualizing my opponent, etc., etc. But I'm sharp, I'm ready, I'm excited to perform. I'm excited to work with you this weekend. I'm going to be joining Karyn finally at the desk this weekend. Anderson Silva, she said, takes on Uriah Hall. It'll be on ESPN Plus. It's going to be a great fight. It's Anderson Silva's retirement fight, so I'm honored to be working that fight, to be a part of, the end of his legacy and history. But it's going to be fun to be alongside my podcast partner, Karyn Bryant. We're going to have Rashad Evans. I think it's going to be a fun one. So I hope all our viewers can check that out as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited that you're going to be doing that. And we will be doing UFC Live and the pre-show. I believe we'll do both of those things on Friday. And then, of course, we'll have the post-show on Saturday. So ESPN Plus is where you'll see the pre-show and the post-show. ESPN2 usually is where we do UFC Live. So that would be on Friday. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I know we'll have a great time because, it'll be good. It'll be good. I'm going to say, Alan, I'm going to give you a little bit of an advanced warning that I probably am going to razz you a little bit on the air. Because it's been a while, so you're almost like a newcomer again, and we always have to sweat the pledges, if you know what I mean.
I'm fine with it. I will be the rookie. I saw it might have been Instagram for ESPN or something, but DC and Michael Chiesa had a bit of Chiesa kind of like gets offended and goes after DC very fast, and DC was like, whoa, rookie! Like he put up the rookie sign, and he was. But yeah, I get it because Michael's the new guy on that set, and I'll be the new guy this weekend, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we're gonna have a really good time though. But yeah, so as I mentioned, obviously, it's a big deal. Khabib is retiring. He retired with a record of 29-0, and it was a very emotional post speech. It was a very just emotional moment with him afterwards. You could see everything coming out of him. The loss of his father earlier in the year and him soldiering on. But he talked about the fact that he had made a promise to his mom it would be his last one, and also when he looks at the picture of who could be contending for the title next, he says, I've already beaten Dustin. I've already beaten Conor. I've already beaten, we never did get the Tony fight, which does bum me out, but that just bums me out. But you have to respect him, and I respect it. I'm sad to see him go, but I totally respect the decision.
You can't, I mean, yeah, exactly. You can't do anything but respect the amount of work that he has put forward since he stepped foot inside of the octagon. You mentioned it. His father died. It was something that was so taxing on his soul and his heart. His father had been a big part of his father had started his career basically with teaching him how to fight and getting him wrestling with bears, the videos that you saw. But his father became very instrumental towards the end of his career, more so it seemed like, being there, putting the team together, making the move to go to AKA and train with along those guys, and very instrumental. And so when his father passed, Khabib seemed very lost, and you could tell at the end of this fight the emotions. We hadn't seen those type of emotions out of Khabib. Khabib's usually very reserved, very soft-spoken, and he had to be consoled by not only Justin Gaethje, who did a great job showing mutual respect after, but his teammates and everything. But you could tell that conversation had been had, like you said, that his mother had asked him to please retire. I think it was his father's plan for him to retire already at 29-0 or 30-0 was one of those numbers. So this was already preconceived as something that he knew that was going to happen. And I think it was just, when Khabib fights these days, there's so many people. I mean, that's why the card was so early for our viewers that did not know. It was a daytime card, and people were texting me, wait, is it pay-per-view at 11 a.m.? Is this wrong? It's because of the amount of people that Khabib that he brings in when he fights. He demands all these people to come, or people want to see him fight. And so they do it early in those times over there so that they have the better viewing times. But it was a beautiful career, and I want to talk to you about this later, Karyn, after we get into the fight, about where he rates among the
Yes.
GOAT status now. And it was something I've been thinking about all weekend. And it's what's once people retire, I want to add, it almost seems like their legacy is now, it's bigger. And now you can look at it as a timeline span. But when they're still active, sometimes you go, well, I want to wait and see, because what if they lose tomorrow?
Right.
Or what if they fail a drug test? Or what if something else happens? But when it's all said and done, you can really take it and put it up there and look at it and compare it to the other greats and say who was the best. And so I do want to get into that subject, but let's get into this fight first, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because initially we both considered the fact that if anybody could do this, Justin could do this, right? Because we know he's not afraid. We know he's fearless. We know he'll go there. He'll take 2 to give 3, whatever. So I thought that he had as great a chance as anyone, if not better, in certain situations. Also because he knows how to wrestle. But it did become kind of, I felt like 2 minutes in, I went, wow, Khabib looks amazing. Like, I remember I tweeted out, I was like, the champ is looking so solid. Like, the pace was fast. Everything, like, right away, it just looked like Justin was already kind of, like, on his heels or whatever, and, like, already had to, like, catch his breath. Like, holy crap, like, it just seemed that Khabib started fast and was a man on a mission. And obviously, we know he was now in hindsight, right? Because, he went there with all of that in mind about it being his last fight. But I do remember just thinking, really only about 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in, I was like, I don't know, Justin, man. I don't know. I thought it kind of seemed pretty obvious that Khabib was going to win.
So you were picking up the Khabib energy right away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See, for me, when I watched it, and I got to say, I did not get the chance to watch it live. I had to work and train. I had to go back and rewatch it. Knowing the outcome already, I knew the outcome. Right. So I don't like doing that typically, but there was no way I was not going to look at my phone.
Right.
So I knew the outcome, but I'm rewatching this fight. And what I picked up on was that Justin was doing a good job with the low kicks, landing the low kicks. And it seemed to be a bit of a close round, a bit of a tied round, maybe even Justin's favor in terms of landing strikes.
Right.
Khabib was definitely pushing the pace. And there was that one part, maybe 2 minutes into the fight, that Justin landed something. And I don't think it was very hard. And Khabib said at that point, okay, I'm not giving him his striking range. I'm going to be in my striking range. And from that point on, I saw exactly what you saw. Around 2.5 minutes or so, Khabib got into his striking range, did not respect the game of inside out. He said, I'm getting right in his face, and he was able to then take him down at will and ended the round very strongly in an armbar position. I believe it was locked in. Yeah. But going into that second round, then Khabib was firing on all cylinders.
Totally.
He had tasted some of Justin's power, not his full power, but it didn't alarm him. He didn't feel anything or sense anything that scared him. And when you don't have the threat of knocking you out or scaring Khabib, or the confidence in Khabib now, knowing I could take you down, because that was the big question you just mentioned. Right. Justin is an All-American wrestler. He may not be able to out-grapple Khabib, but he should have enough sprawls in him to at least stay on his feet. Right. We didn't really see that. Khabib only shot, I think, one takedown in that round, and he landed it, and the same thing happened in the second round. So I agree. Beginning of that round, it was kind of tied up. Khabib ended the round very strong. But I do think, Karyn, and you usually know this more than I do, so I think two of the three judges might have given Justin the first round. I'm not sure about that.
You might be right, too, because I don't have the scorecards in front of me. But I think you could be right on that, because he did have some low kicks, like you said, and they did have an effect. I'm not trying to say he didn't land anything or whatever, but it just, to me, looked very obvious that the champ was going to be in top form. And the one thing I did have concerning Khabib going into this fight, and we've seen it before, him struggling to make weight. He did have to weigh in with the towel. Justin popped up there looking all fresh and everything. And I did wonder if that was going to play out into the fight for Khabib. But it didn't, And I did see that. When you see him, like, back to weight and everything, you're like, that dude's huge, right? And I mean, not huge, but we know how strong he is. And you know that once he gets that top control, like, where are you going to go? Like, what are you going to do? So, I think that Justin did have some success, but I saw him backing up a lot. I saw him moving away. Like, I saw Khabib on the hunt, you know what I mean? And I just saw him just looking like a man, like I said, now that we know what was in his mind and how motivated he was and how there was no way he was going to lose yesterday. Like, there just was no way he was going to lose.
And think about this. Khabib is one of the best. He is the best. He is the best in the world at ground control, getting on top, getting the top control, and not only keeping control, keeping you down, but landing strikes. And that's what separates him from other people that lay on top of you or that are only just trying to play it safe. Right. Not a beat. He gets the Dagestani handcuff. He punches you in the face. He passes position. And normally he transitions to the back and takes the highest percentage submission, which is the choke. Because if I don't get the choke, I'm still in a top position. You never really see Khabib finishing the chokes from his back. Right. He'll get on top position and finish the choke on top. So he's always playing the percentage game, the safe game where he's in control. In this fight, we saw a new part of his arsenal here. He finished the first round in the arm, going for the armbar. The second round, he went from mount position to the triangle off his back, which is, let me tell you something. I do jiu-jitsu class all the time, and we go for that. But me and my jiu-jitsu coach always know, don't ever give up full mount. If you're raining down punches, don't give up full mount. Right. And then go for the triangle position. He was able to do that. So to imagine if he continued to fight and go on, and he's also now throwing submissions in there, it shows he's even more deadlier guy. Do you need to answer your door? I do. I was about to say, can we cut it real quick? And I get my doorbell's ringing. Sorry. Okay. 1 second.
Hi, folks. So while Alan's gone, he thinks we're going to cut. We're going to just keep going here. So yeah, he's working with me and Rashad this weekend, and I'm going to have to razz him pretty darn good. I'm gonna have to think of what I can do. But I tell you what, it's gonna be really fun having him there. I'm sure he's gonna look sharp. I'll have to see what he's wearing. Maybe we can color coordinate, see if we can get something in there together. But anyway, yeah, it's actually really cool because he's been trying to get back on with us, and it's been taking some time. And luckily, he got the call to come and work with us on this one. So I know he's a huge Anderson Silva fan, as am I. And I also, like, Uriah's Jamaican. Like, I'm half Jamaican, so my heart is going to be torn on that one. And I met Uriah way back when on The Ultimate Fighter, like we were covering that years ago. Like, he's just a good dude. So it is going to be kind of an interesting event to have Anderson on his last one. And I do kind of not love watching people retire without a crowd around. It does kind of bum me out. But I'm glad that we will be there to see that. It's going to be really interesting. But yeah, excited for Alan to come out there and do the show with us. So we'll get there on Thursday. We'll do our little our COVID testing, and we'll do a couple shows on Friday. And yeah, really looking forward to it. I know it's a little bit of a bummer that it's Halloween and people aren't going to be able to go. I don't know where you guys live, obviously. In LA here, we can't really have a Halloween. So hopefully his son isn't too bummed about him leaving town for that. I did actually think it could have been fun for us to do the shows in costume, but I don't really think that's going to go. And I think that might also be slightly disrespectful to Anderson. But I have this really cool skeleton thing that I'm thinking maybe I could have worn, but I don't think so. But I don't know if you guys saw, actually a couple years ago, Alan and I did the podcast in costume from The Walking Dead. So that was kind of fun. You can go look at that one at some point. But yeah, it was cool. Is he coming back? Who's at the door? Who is at the door for Alan? I'm very curious. I'm surprised his dog didn't bark. Usually his dog barks. Wait, is he coming back?
Hey.
Oh, here he is. Hey, there he is.
They're working on my meter. I can sit down, but I can hear him banging on the wall for a second. So maybe we can wait like 2 minutes.
All right.
My
I was doing a whole talk while you were gone anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we still on right now, guys? I'm sorry, guys. We can rock and roll. For those of you, if we are on right now or whatnot, I had housework done to put a new electrical panel. My meter fell off today. There's a wind in LA. Oops. The meter falls off the wall today, and the electricity goes out. So the electricity is just banging on my wall right now. So nice. That's why my doorbell's ringing.
Well, maybe we'll keep it going. We'll see what that looks like in the edit. But anyway, yeah. You know, the thing about Khabib now, obviously, with him out of the picture, it does mean, okay, what's next, right? What do we do? We know that Conor and Dustin are supposed to fight. You still then have Tony Ferguson. We have Michael Chandler. So Michael Chandler was in Abu Dhabi. He was the alternate for that fight. You know, he's a Bellator champion. He's a very, very, very good fighter. So we now have him in the mix as well. So, I mean, I guess you could kind of say you could have, you know, Dustin and Conor be kind of one end of a bracket. I don't know if right now we take Justin out only because he was interim champ and just lost to Khabib. So I don't know if Justin kind of gets like a bye or something like that. I don't know what we do, but maybe do you make Michael Chandler fight Tony Ferguson? Because Michael said that he wanted that fight. We saw the media day. We have the interview up with Michael Chandler from the media day, and he was talking about wanting to fight Tony, which would be a great fight. So maybe we have Tony and Michael and Conor and Dustin do something, and Justin gets a chance at one of those winners or something. I'm not sure what's on your mind.
I don't know what it is, but something about the lightweight division, it always seems as an odd man out. And I feel like as soon as you started talking about tournament, I thought, you're right. A tournament style for the lightweight division. We have Conor versus Poirier. The winner advances to the finals to the fight for the belt. And then we have Michael Chandler, the new dark horse in the division, fight Justin Gaethje, who just lost to Khabib.
Right.
Oh, yeah, but what about Tony Ferguson, the man Tony, right? And I didn't mean to exclude Tony. It's just that he's been kind of out of the picture for a minute, and so I wasn't thinking about him. But if Chandler would have never came in, I would have said, you know, one of those those four would have been had to find a way.
But Justin already beat Tony, so you wouldn't necessarily want them to fight again.
Right.
But then again, Conor and Dustin already fought too, so Conor versus Tony, Dustin versus Justin.
You know, I wonder where does Michael Chandler fit in the rankings now that he's signed to the UFC? Where is he in the rankings? I haven't looked at that yet, so I'll have to take a look at that. But
well, the fact that he was the alternate for a title fight means he's obviously very highly regarded.
Right. But I'll tell you one thing. I mean, as sad and as respectful as everyone in the division and around the UFC was to see Khabib win and retire, the entire division just lit up with joy because Conor was probably thinking, you know, I can go back and take this shot now.
Exactly.
Dustin Poirier. I'm fighting Conor. This might be like the interim or a possible title fight because it is now vacant. And now not only is Conor the biggest draw, but now we are the biggest fight happening in the division without a champion. So we are kind of the uncrowned two fighters right now fighting for the belt. It opens up so many possibilities.
It really does.
I would love the style of a kind of a tournament thing. I know that was kind of a Bellator type of system at first, and it kind of didn't work that great. But when we've had the 4-man bracket in UFC, when we had that in the flyweight division for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, I thought it was great. I thought that was super fun to watch 4 guys compete, the winner of those 2, and then it becomes a very rightful king of the throne, king of the crown right there, rather than saying, the rankings, or this guy has this many draws or pay-per-view. If Conor beats Poirier again, he deserves to be there.
Right.
And if Chandler is able to beat Tony or Justin Gaethje, then Chandler deserves to be there. And then those two, whoever these people are that win, the deserving 2 would fight. But I would love to see it. It's just, again, it's kind of a five-man best in the division right now. Right.
It is exciting, though. It's exciting. Although, did Dustin and Conor decide what weight they were fighting at yet?
I'm hearing it was at 70. So that's kind of what, it seems like Conor was taking the lead on all this.
Right.
And Dustin was like, whatever, because Dustin's just down to fight, and it's like, whatever. I'm not going to say no to the money fight that everybody in the UFC would love to have, and then that he's also going to donate $500,000 to my charity.
Right.
I saw Ally Quinta was giving Dustin Poirier a little bit of heat on this.
Yeah.
And I do think, yes, Conor took the lead, and Dustin kind of just followed along with it. But why would he not? If somebody's going to say, I'm going to give your charity $500,000, and by the way, it's going to be the biggest paying fight in your entire career. We're prize fighters. And if we can get the biggest prize and the best known fight that the entire world would watch, we're going to take it. What is Dustin supposed to do? Be like, nah, man, like, nah, on my terms, we're fighting in Lafayette, Louisiana. Like, who cares? It's a fight. Dustin's a fighter, and it's a big payday. So I see why he was not obligated, but he was fine with letting Conor make the calls in it. He doesn't care. He just wants to get there and fight and prove that he's gotten better.
Yeah, I agreed on that one. But yeah, so it does open up a lot, and I agree with you. I think all the lightweights were like, Inshallah, like they were like psyched. You know what I mean? I mean that in the best way. That they were probably just like, congratulations, Khabib. We totally understand it, but thank you, thank you for playing, and thank you for leaving.
I mean, it's like if the light heavyweight division never had John Jones,
Right.
so many fighters might have been more well known or might have had their own legacy, but they get stumped because then now and then we have these greats that come along and nobody can beat them. Khabib was the great right there. And so these other fighters that are amazing fighters, but they couldn't get past that one thing that nobody in the world was better than him at, which is the grappling department. He's retiring now. It opens up a lot of doors for a lot of well-known fighters.
And I got to be honest with you, like, I like watching Conor fight, and I like having Conor in the mix. Like, the whole idea of Conor not being an active fighter, I thought kind of sucked. So whether or not you say he was afraid of Khabib or what, who knows what, I don't care. But if Khabib's gone now and that means Conor fights more, then I think it's a win-win for us. For you know?
You know, the one thing, and again, I agree exactly what you just said. The one thing that's always a bit funny, though, is when a dominant champion moves on and the next in line come. It is a bit of a damn. You know, they're the best in the world now, you know, because the other person retired. And so there's always that kind of feeling, like when John Jones vacated the belt and Dominic Reyes and Jan fought for it. These guys are amazing. But what would have happened if they would have continued trying to fight John? Would one of them have eventually beat him? We never know.
But you'll never know. You'll never know. But yeah, I do wish Khabib the best. And, you know, first time we interviewed him was, I put it up on my Instagram, like UFC 148 or something like that back in 2012. And I remember asking him, you know, we were talking about the hat and different things. And like, it's funny to go back and look on that. You know, he was such a young guy and you're there and you're just like, oh my God, like who knew what he was going to turn into? You know what I mean? And it really is incredible. So then, of course, talked to him a bunch of times over the year and he would come to, you know, UFC Tonight and different stuff. And was always really great with us. And we know, you know, obviously there's some people have some things where they're like, oh, I don't like his religion and I don't like this and I don't like that. But I just know for me, whenever I dealt with him, he was great. And so definitely wish him the best.
Same here. I love the respect shown after the fight between both men. Khabib talking directly to Justin about loving your family.
Yeah.
Justin coming consoling Khabib after the fight. That's what martial arts is, man. Yeah. It's about respect at the end of the day. And look, I love a good dog fight.
Yep.
But when it's done, it's done. And I love to see that.
Yeah. Well, there was a great fight in the co-main event as well. Jared Cannonier versus Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker got back on top here. And, you know, the former champ is now maybe set up for a rematch with Israel Adesanya. I believe I read something where Jared mentioned that he broke his foot or something like right away in the fight. After it really didn't take too long, or he said he broke his ulna. So he broke a leg, a bone in his leg. And so he was like, well, I can't really, no, wait, ulna's this one.
I don't know.
I forget. There's radius and ulna. Is the ulna, I'm blanking on my biology, but he did say that he broke it. And so that obviously factored into the fight for him.
Yeah. You know, it was...
it's the forearm bone. Yeah, the ulna is the long bone in the forearm that stretches from the elbow to the smallest finger. So, yeah, he blocked something.
Probably a kick or something.
Yep.
Ah, that's rough, man. You've seen that, like, Paige Van Zandt when she broke that bone in her arm. Right. She had to have multiple surgeries on it.
Yeah, he says he broke it. He says he broke his left arm. The very first kick he threw, he broke or fractured my left ulna. I couldn't find my groove and adjust quickly to get the W, so I'll take the loss. That's
interesting to know. That's very interesting to know because if I'm looking from the outside at this fight, turn the sound off on the TV, and I'm just looking at the movement, I thought Robert Whittaker looked so fluid and just he had good movement, and he was in his kind of, you know, that kind of sharpened knife stance.
Yep.
And he was doing his thing. It's a lot of what we expected to see out of Robert Whittaker. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of tools in his arsenal. He throws a lot of feints. He's hiding the kicks behind the punches. His switch stance. He has a lot of weapons to take you out, and he's been fighting like this at the highest level for a very long time. when he was the champion. Jared Cannonier, I love watching this guy fight. He fights with such intensity, and he's got a bunch of great weapons. But when you watch the two from afar, Jared seemed to be a little bit more stiff. And I'm not taking a shot at Jared, but we're just talking about stylistically, the way that these two men fight. It seemed like it was going to be tough for Jared Cannonier's style to come forward and have much effect on Robert Whittaker. The way that Robert Whittaker was fighting that kind of Wonder Boy style from the outside, hands low, up jabs, kicks, hiding it in and out, feints. There's so many things that he makes you think about and deal with that if you're fighting a little bit more 1-2 dimensional like Jared's style was, it's going to make it a very, very tough fight. And so, again, love Jared Cannonier. I love the way he's just so very honest and real.
Yeah, he's a real dude.
Wasn't my day, this and that. Picked up, I was already a fan, but I'm even more of a fan. I really like Jared Cannonier. But Robert Whittaker, he is the real deal. He was the champion for a very long time. I thought he did not fight just that style that we saw this fight with Jared Cannonier and the way that he fought Darren Till. When he fought Izzy, I don't think he was as good and as elusive in and out. And so I think he might have more success if he fought like that against Izzy. But look, Izzy's last fight, I don't want to get off the subject, but Izzy's the man. Izzy made me a believer. Izzy's the man. And so that is going to be a fight that hopefully happens in the future. But great fight by both men, but tremendous work by the former champion, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for Jared for that to happen early in the fight because you never really will know now what the fight could have been, right? If you were 100%. But I agree, Robert. Now that he's back and reinvigorated and all that, everything, like you said, is firing on all cylinders for that guy. And it was funny, we were watching it, and with his stance, like you mentioned, the hands low, and Wade was like, I don't know if that's a great idea. I'm like, yeah, but he always fights like that. Like, Robert, the karate, the angles and this and that, and the low hand, and he's been fine with it before. So that didn't worry me. That didn't worry me really, even though Jared has long arms and, what I mean, could have gotten over him and stuff like that. But it seemed to me pretty early on, again, in that one too, and maybe there was a moment where I thought Jared looked a little bit reckless for a couple, and I was like, wait a minute, bro, slow, like something. But maybe that was panic setting in. Maybe that's him knowing one of his weapons is now compromised. You know what I mean? And then overcompensating, trying to do something else. But I just remember, I always think that Whittaker always looks composed. I don't know if I've ever seen him look freaked out in a fight or, nerve, even when you're up there against Yoel Romero and all these things and his knee is trash and this and that. Like you wouldn't even know it. The guy just doesn't. He just doesn't lose composure and focus in a fight. So I agree with you, though. Israel is the man. So, that was he beat Robert in the second round. But also then when it's all a combination of things, right? Because that was at a point in Whittaker when he was burnt out and he was, had the injuries and not appendix, wasn't it? Or
he had a stomach issue.
Or the hernia, right? And like he'd been through a lot, and even though, like you said, he didn't fight that frequently, he was training to fight, and then things went wrong or whatever. And that one was then the day he was supposed to fight Kelvin Gastelum and all this. So he's been preparing for just nothing but killers for the last how many years, and was fried. And so I do think. I'm a huge Israel fan. I think it's a combination of Israel being very, very talented and Robert being like not at his best that night, and that's what happens. It's the fight game. So I'm very curious to see a rematch.
Yeah, I'll say stylistically, Israel Adesanya going against anyone, Robert Whittaker is probably the best test for him in the rematch.
Yeah.
And stylistically, I would like to see Darren Till. I would love to see how Darren Till, with his nervous energy and those feints at that southpaw way where he plays with the jab and tries to he's so good at covering distance with the left hand. It's a very hard thing to do, cover long distances with a straight left hand. He's a big man with a long left hand, but he also covers the distance very well. He gets in there with feints. So I think that would be an interesting matchup as well. I mean, obviously we know Darren Till has a big fight coming up already.
Yes.
They have to get back.
Jack Hermanson,
maybe. Exactly. So if you got past that, I would like to see what would happen. But right now, Izzy's the man at the top of the mountain, and Robert Whittaker is the next best guy to try to lay claim to getting that title. But
let's not forget, Kelvin Gastelum gave Israel a hell of a fight. A hell of a fight. He was one takedown away from being the champ. Like, why did you take him down, bro? Like, what are you doing?
that was the one reason that I went against Izzy. I've always gone for Izzy, and I go, man, Kelvin Gastelum beat Izzy up. I mean, in terms of like damage, like Izzy can be hit. Izzy can be hit because Kelvin Gastelum hit him a bunch. And I go, man, what happens if Paulo Costa starts landing like that? This fight is over. And so I picked wrong. I picked the guy wrong against Izzy. Going back and watching Uriah Hall versus Paulo Costa, that is the fight. I promise you, that is the fight that Izzy watched and go, if Uriah Hall could land these type of combos on Paulo Costa, I'm going to land a lot more on it. And that's the fight that made Izzy so confident in this fight. But yes, I agree. That was a tremendous fight on that one. And Izzy can be hit if you have the right style or you're able to push forward through it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that Jared heals up quickly. And, that hopefully he didn't. Well, luckily, it wasn't like he took a ton of damage in there. Obviously, a broken arm is not a great thing. But but that was a good win for Whittaker. Otherwise, I know our mutual friend Kenny didn't get to work with Volkov on this one, but Volkov looked good in his fight against Walt Harris. Landed that little teep, and everyone's like, "Oh, it was a low blow." And then you watch the replay, you're like, "No, that was just like spot on." Also, I was happy for Lauren Murphy. She now, is really putting herself in a position to command for a title fight, and she's won like 5 in a row now. She's set some records, and so she's doing great in the strawweight division. So, it's the flyweight picture. I mean, flyweight, not strawweight. Flyweight picture is looking really cool, and so it was an entertaining night. But of course, Alan, we do have to look ahead. You just mentioned Uriah Hall. And he's fighting Anderson on Saturday. And it's like, well, I know people have soured on Anderson. Some people have soured on him because, when you look at his last fights, it's not what he used to be, right? Yeah. But it's still an Anderson Silva fight. And damn it if I'm not excited.
You have to go back to our fans. If you're feeling that way on the fence about why is he still fighting, he's not quite what he used to be. Yeah, Father Time taking his toll on him, just as it has to any fighter fighting in their 40s now. You go back and watch one of Anderson Silva's fights and the energy that he comes out with and the excitement in the air. And it reminded me that no other fighter in history, and I could talk about the Khabibs and the John Jones and the greats and the George St. Pierre. George St. Pierre might have been the only person. But there was something about an Anderson Silva fight that when he came out, it gave you goosebumps. You didn't know what was going to happen that night. And it was excitement. And he always brought that. I went back and I studied some of his old fights. And I go, I remember why I fell in love with Anderson Silva. Because he would come out and he would make these funny faces and he would play games inside of the octagon. And then you would see a front kick. And then you would see a reversed elbow. And you would see a flying knee. Right. And he's the guy that started all these trends for a lot of us fighters with the hands down. Right. Or playing inside the octagon, knocking down Forrest Griffin and helping him up with his hand before he knocked him out. He did so many amazing things. And so it's the end of an era. I'm honored to be working, like I said, the desk with Karyn on this fight. But Uriah Hall is probably the perfect opponent for him when you want a beautiful, striking, respectful fight. But also a very good opponent for him. Both men, if I had to say what is the strength, the number one strength in both men, it would be a sharp, long jab. And both men possess that. But we're going righty against lefty. And what happens when that happens with two people? They cancel each other out. So if you take two guys' best weapons away, it becomes what can we do with the rest of the body? Who can control the pace and the rhythm? So I'm so interested to see it. But it's going to be a great fight. Uriah Hall has been doing great things. I know he's has to feel honored to be taking this fight, Anderson Silva's sign-off fight. But it is a tough position, right? Yeah. You're in a fight where everybody wants to see the legend, the hero, ride off into the sunset, and you're in a position to play the spoiler on this one. So I wonder how Uriah Hall is kind of taking that in stride.
Well, yeah, it's tricky because it's also, we did see Anderson versus Israel. And so we've seen him against a great striker. And that one ended up, I think people were a little disappointed because they thought it seemed sort of like a sparring match or something. That's one thing that is a little strange sometimes with Anderson is you wonder how motivated he is or how committed he is to it. Or does he just want to go in there and play around and have some fun and I don't know. So it'll be interesting to hear from him this week and hear how motivated he is. I don't know that he's like thrilled that it's the end. I think, maybe he would have liked more. And I do think it's unfortunate that somebody like Anderson has to go out without a crowd. I've said that before, and I've said that about other fighters too, retiring. And especially though, somebody like Anderson to not have a crowd, like you said, like he's one of the first people that I interviewed where I was like, oh my God, I'm standing around talking to a superstar. Like when we first started covering MMA in like 2007 and stuff, one of the first shows that we, early on in the years though, getting credentialed, Anderson was one of the biggies. And so I remember, covering his open workout. I remember asking him a few questions in Portuguese. I remember just like he would show up with his crowd and they would all be in the same uniforms. And Ronaldo was there at that time, and it was out in Vegas. And like an Anderson Silva fight was an event. Like you did not miss an Anderson Silva fight ever, ever, ever. And so working his fights were always so special. That's when I have the interviews with Seagal, you know what I mean? Talking about that front kick he landed on Vitor. I remember being in the crowd when he fought Vitor. My head freaking exploded with that kick. Like, what? I was cage side when he fought Chris both times. And I remember sitting there like, Anderson lost? Like, what? Like, what? Like it was never going to happen. Like in my head, Anderson Silva was never going to lose, So he really, I hold him in very high regard, and I have a lot of really positive memories of covering his fights and just being around him and his team and his energy. Like and Ed Suarez well too, like Black House is the House Anderson and Lyoto, but like it's there's so much history. And I agree, like for people who are newer to the sport and they look at his record and they're like, oh, it's nothing but losses now and he's washed up. Daniel Cormier took Anderson down because he was like, holy crap, like I'm not gonna stand there and strike with Anderson. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, he's not going to do it. The fight with Michael Bisping was a great fight. It's just, he means a lot. And so to me, I know when we're standing there and you and me and Rashad are standing there, and he better come out still to Ain't No Sunshine. Yeah. I better still hear that song, because that is goosebumps. That's all of it. So to me, honestly, I think, Uriah has a great chance of beating him. Uriah's great, and Uriah working down with Saeed and Saeed down at Fortis and stuff. Like he's in the zone right now. Like Uriah looks amazing these days, and he looks great. And obviously I'm gonna guess the odds are gonna be in Uriah's favor. But if somehow Anderson can channel that old magic and bring it back, like I want to see that. Like you said, the Forrest, like he was in the Matrix with Forrest. He was in the zone. I think the only time I didn't like an Anderson fight was the one with Damian Maia, where it was a little weird over in Abu Dhabi, and that one was like, that one was, because of Damian's such a classy guy, I think that one was like, I don't know if I like that one, but otherwise, anytime I saw Anderson, it was a freaking moment. And so I personally too am thrilled to be working this fight, like over the moon.
Anderson, one of his best qualities, aside from his jab that I mentioned, was his mobility. You look back at Chris Lieben when he made his UFC debut. He was in and out and angling and side to side, and Chris Lieben was just chasing him around like a puppy dog. And no disrespect to Chris Lieben, but that's what he would do with his mobility on his feet and his head movement that would set up his counters. Right. His mobility was his superpower that set up that beautiful jab against Forrest Griffin. As he's gotten older, his mobility is lessened. Now he's become more of a stationary fighter with his feet. He's still got mobility in the head movement. Right. But you take the fighter's feet away, his legs away, and there's far less more options. So if I could see the mobility in this fight, which I'm hearing from his teammate, from his coaches, that Anderson Silva is looking like the old Anderson again. And granted, you take that with a grain of salt because he's much older. But they said in his last 5 or 6 fights, it seemed like he was fighting at 40, 50%. And now he's fighting at 100% again. And so what I hope, what they mean by that is that we're seeing the mobility come back. We're seeing a little bit of pep in his step. Yeah. Because that is the best Anderson Silva, when he's able to move and set things up and disguise the weapons that he's trying to set up and land on you. So I look forward to be a great fight. If I had to make a prediction, I would say that this would probably go to a decision. Yeah. I don't know if either guy's going to take either one of out, but I just want to see a very competitive, compelling fight in there. A beautiful story to end his career.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I'm excited. And then also the co-main event, Bryce Mitchell versus Touchy Fili. That's a good fight.
This is a good co-main. I'm excited. I mean, this is a big step up in my opinion for Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah.
Andre Fili is no joke. He's been in there with some of the best guys.
Really good.
He is a deadly striker. He's taken out some his last fight against, I think it was Jouban.
Yeah.
That's a tough striker.
Yes.
And he's got underrated wrestling. We've talked about Fili's wrestling before. Was it Bermudez?
Yes, Dennis Bermudez. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who's a power wrestler.
Totally.
And Fili was able to take him down numerous times. And now he's going against Bryce Mitchell, who is he's a jiu-jitsu guy.
Yeah.
He's got decent takedowns. He's got good takedowns. Are they on the level of Fili's training at Alpha Male? I don't know. And so what I'm getting at is, if Mitchell can't take down Fili and they're forced to stand, Fili seems to be the more seasoned striker, where Mitchell's still getting more and more comfortable. But you talk about a banger of a fight, and a guy named Bryce Mitchell, who always surprises me. Every time he wins, I go, oh, I didn't realize he was that good. I didn't realize he was going to dominate the black belt in jiu-jitsu. He does it every single time. So I'm looking forward to this co-main event.
Yeah, Thug Nasty is a trip. And just to get him on the mic is pretty entertaining as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it is standing up, also Andre's going to have that length advantage and stuff. He's a lanky guy for that weight class. So.
Right, I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Well, that's good stuff. I am curious, though, when we're talking about Anderson and we're talking about Khabib, for the longest time, people called Anderson the GOAT. He was the greatest of all time. I don't know what your take is right now. Like, Khabib, 29-0, everything that he did is incredible. And, Dana was calling him the GOAT. A lot of people are calling him the GOAT. And then, of course, Jon Jones is chiming in on whether or not he's the GOAT. And Jon Jon makes a hell of an argument, man. He makes a hell of an argument. So it's tough to me, because when you look at all the people that Jon beat and the names on there, like every single one, and yeah, he has that loss, but it was just a DQ, and it wasn't really. I don't know, man. That's a hard cut. It's a hard cut. And then George was amazing too. George was amazing too.
You're taking Jon Jones as your GOAT. Why did you
I might be leaning more towards Jon. I hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. I don't hate to say it. But I might be leaning more towards Jon. I don't know. Only because the length of time. I mean, same thing. Khabib has been dominant but Khabib had what? 4 defenses, 3 defenses, 4 defenses. He's, he missed weight a couple times. Look, I'm not saying Jon didn't have his fair share of whoops, because obviously he did. But when it came to the fight, the thing is, when it came to the fights, both of them were equivalently dominant and both, had incredible fights. I might be leaning toward Jon, though, if I'm honest.
Look, you're not wrong. And you know what? If you're leaning towards Jon, or you're leaning towards Khabib, or you're leaning towards GSP, you're not wrong. Nobody's wrong. And it could be a water cooler argument fight until the end of time. Jon still has time to prove us wrong. To not prove us wrong, but if you're not picking Jon at number 1 right now, and you have Jon at 2 or 3 or whatever, Jon is still competing and changing weight classes. So he's got the possibility to do more right now. I was torn on it, to be honest. I have an opinion right now, but it could change tomorrow, and it changed yesterday. But at the end of the day, Jon Jones is one of the best talents we've ever seen inside the octagon. And Jon Jones has more title defenses than Khabib even has in victories inside the octagon, if I believe I'm saying this right. So that alone is so impressive, and the resume that Jon Jones has. But when I think of the greatest, I got to say, who was the most dominant? What jumped off the page? And the fact that Khabib has never lost a fight. Jon Jones was DQ'd.
Right.
So I get it. He's still undefeated. But Khabib never had any issues outside getting suspended or whatever it was. And I'm not trying to raise up his past, but it was a clean title run. And the biggest thing that jumped off the page is Jon Jones is super dominant, but there were 2 or 3 fights in his career.
I knew you were going to say that.
that were close, that people were saying the other person won, that it was a split decision, where Khabib, 29-0, he maybe lost 3 rounds, 2 to 3 rounds in that entire career. His entire career to lose less than 5 rounds. That is supremely the most dominant athlete we have ever seen. Right. And so I have to say, he's got to be the GOAT for those reasons, because he was so dominant. But then let me just bring up one other thing. When I think of GOATs, I also like to think of well-rounded in striking and kicking and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and mindset and everything. And when that person comes to mind, it's GSP. GSP is the GOAT when it comes to being well-rounded martial artist.
Right.
GSP cannot be in my 1 and 2. It's because he was submitted and he was TKO'd.
Yeah.
And if you take a guy who was beaten, finished twice, above a guy who's only lost 2 rounds in his entire career, it's absurd. So the fight is between Jon Jones and Khabib, but Jon Jones still has time. If Jon Jones goes to heavyweight and makes big waves over there, it's going to be pretty hard to deny him.
I see what you're saying, and I understand your points. No, because I'm torn too. Like, it's true. Dominance, Khabib's dominance is so impressive. And yeah, the fact that he never, I don't really remember him being in trouble in a fight really badly, right? I mean, I'd really have to go back and look. I don't really remember him being in trouble too bad. Whereas
he's been hit and kind of wobbled, but never.
Right. But we've seen Jon in trouble the first fight with Gus. Some people think Dominic won that fight. So you could say that, well, yeah, Khabib was never in trouble. He was so dominant, and that's what makes him the GOAT, is because nobody even came close. But you could then argue, Alan, my friend, that the fact that Jon had to dig deep in those fights with Gus and Dominic and still came out victorious proves that he is the greatest, because he did deal with the adversity and overcame it, whereas you could argue that maybe Khabib never had an equivalent to push him to that level to have to dig.
Now we're getting some juicy stuff. I agree, because let me tell you something. Nobody is better in championship rounds than Jon Jones. Let me repeat that. Nobody is better in the 4th and the 5th round than Jon Jones. When you got to dig deep and you got to say, I'm about to beat Jon Jones to become light heavyweight champion of the world, Jon Jones says, no, you don't. No, you don't. He always comes back. I've never seen Jon Jones lose a 5th round, probably not even a 4th round. Jon Jones is the man when it comes to those later rounds.
Right.
And he's dug deep. It's back and forth. You know what? Let me say one more thing. And this is, I don't know if I have if this is a point to this, but 205 has long been one of the most exciting divisions in the UFC, because Chuck the Iceman Liddell made it famous.
Right.
And legends came into that division. You talk about, when you name guys in 205, you think Jon Jones, you think Chuck Liddell, you think Shogun, you think Machida, you think Rampage Jackson, and Jon Jones ran through all those people.
Yeah.
But when you think about the most competitive and the toughest division in the UFC, I'm sorry, welterweights, but it's probably 55 with 70 right on the tail. But it's 55. When you talk about the best talent in the world, where the number 100th guy or 50th guy is probably equivalent to a top 25 guy in some divisions.
Yeah.
Khabib dominated the toughest division. And so it's so, because I look at Jon Jones' legacy and I go, he choked out Machida, the black belt.
Yeah.
He finished off all these legends. He submitted them. He knocked them out. But Khabib went through the toughest division in the world at the toughest time that we've ever seen it, with Dustin Poiriers and all these guys and Conor McGregor's, and finished them all. God, it's a tough one. There cannot be only one. It's like there has to be 2. And if we get into it real quickly, I don't want to go too long on this subject. Even 5, Karyn, even 5 is tough, because my mind would go something like this: Khabib, Jon Jones, and that could be flip-flop.
Right.
GSP number 3, because he had 2 losses.
Okay.
Anderson Silva number 4. Take away the end of his career.
Right.
When he was in the prime, he was the best and most exciting person in the world. Number 5, if we're only talking about 5, Amanda Nunes, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Amanda Nunes, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson was one of the GOATs,
of course,
pound-for-pound fighters in the world. But go back to my point about division. in the weakest male division that we had in the flyweights, where Amanda Nunes, she is the best woman fighter we've ever seen, 2 weight class champion, and on her resume, a little feather in the cap. I knocked out Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
I beat Bullet Valentina Shevchenko twice. I mean, it's just, she has an unbelievable. I would probably give Amanda the 5th slot above Demetrius, just because some of the names that she's beaten.
You make good arguments. You left out Jose Aldo, so.
Yes, I know. There's just not enough room. There's not enough room.
I don't know. I mean, we could go all day on the GOAT stuff, and people who are watching and people listening, like, I would love to hear your opinions on this, because I do think it's Khabib and John at the top, fighting for that position, and from there, I mean, Demetrius was incredibly dominant, and if we're talking about Khabib just being dominant, and the dominance is what factors into the GOAT status, then you can't deny Demetrius. He's incredible. It's still, he's incredible. And it was a real close fight that he lost to Henry. Like, did he not? I don't know. But I agree, like you said, that division didn't have maybe. See, I don't think it was any less competitive, though. I think it's just that it didn't get as much attention. I don't think that Demetrius didn't have quality opponents. I think he was just so much better, so much better.
But in just statistically, numbers, a division that probably only had 40 fighters compared to the
sure,
welterweight.
I guess but when we look at him over in one now, if he sits there and just wrecks everybody around the world for the rest of the time too, do you know what I mean? Because you can't say that there aren't people in his weight class around the world. Maybe this is the UFC didn't have a lot of them, but that there's a million people that are that size that can fight it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't discount his dominance and his skill set. He's phenomenal.
I got a question for you, Karyn. Best featherweight of all time?
Jose.
Jose Aldo, Max Holloway.
Jose was undefeated for 10 years.
I know, but it's like Max came along and stole his thunder, and he created his own legacy. So as much as I love Jose Aldo, I kind of have him neck and neck with the Max.
I love Maxie Baby. Don't.
I know. But I'm saying, like, Max beat him twice and then was supremely dominant for a long time as well. And so I can't say, well, you're only looking at the end of Jose's career and you're not looking at the end of Anderson Silva's career. It's there can't be a number one.
You
there can't
know,
be a top
Alan,
5.
whatever. I just
Mount Rushmore consists of about 8.
That's
8
what I'm
people.
saying.
Like
That's what I'm saying. I'm such a. I just love Aldo, and I love Maxie Baby too. I think for me, the best featherweight of all time remains to be decided, because I want to see what else Max can do. I do think he beat Volkanovski in that rematch. No disrespect to Volkanovski, but I do think he did win. So I feel like I can't maybe answer that featherweight question yet until I see what else Max achieves, because I think he's phenomenal. I think he's freaking phenomenal. But we already saw that Jose was undefeated for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So I just need a little bit more perspective on that. But you're absolutely right. Max is phenomenal. And yeah, like the quality of opponents he beat, all that stuff. It's all there.
Yeah.
Anyway, people, we want to hear your opinions on this one, because you could go all day on this one. But yeah. Khabib is amazing. John Jones is amazing. Anderson's, they're all good. They're all good. Dang.
I think you probably need 8 or 9 names, but if I was narrowing it down to 2 at the top, I think Jones and Khabib would be the top 2, and that would flip-flop just on your preference and opinion. Right. And what's more important to you, the dominance or who they fought, or the amount of times that they defended the title? So many ways to look at it, but those are the top 2.
Yeah, well, for sure. All right, well, so listen, folks, as we mentioned, Alan and I will be out in Vegas this weekend working Anderson's fight against Uriah Hall. That one airs on ESPN Plus. So on Friday, believe we're doing a UFC Live and a pre-show. UFC Live is on ESPN2, pre-show is on the app, and then we will have a post-show on the app. Rashad Evans, the Hall of Famer, who did fight John Jones, so he can tell us all about it too, and Chuck and all those guys. He is working with us as well, so I know we are going to have a really good time. So, and also, I did a little thing yesterday called After the Facts. If you guys want to know about like the bonuses and everything from UFC 254, I'm going to start just doing this. Give you guys some things because like people set different records on fight nights, and who gets the bonuses, and maybe there's some kind of cool information that we get that you guys don't have. So if you want to know some of that stuff on UFC 254, just look up my other video After the Facts. But yeah, you can follow Wade Eck, our producer, across the board there on stuff. And I'm Karyn Bryant on Twitter and on YouTube, KB Heat over on the gram. Alan, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me guys at Alan Jouban across all social media platforms. Thanks for listening in. I got carried away. We were talking about this GOAT thing. I feel like it's something you can talk all day. But if you guys have any opinions on that, send it to us. I'm curious to see what our fans, our viewers, what their thoughts on the GOAT status is as well.
Absolutely. Definitely want to hear that. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who do get to have a Halloween, we wish you a very safe and healthy one. Hopefully it doesn't ruin, too many kids. It's my daughter's favorite holiday, so I'm bummed that, in LA here, it's not going to be exactly what it used to be. And anyway, I'm working, but she's a little older now. Doesn't want mom following her around anyway. But anyway, for those of you out there having a Halloween, I hope you have a good time.
Take care, guys.